try it out here in the future. Okay, so I've kind of talked about the help and the map and the organization watershed. Let's get into the actual project tab, which, like I said, is where the majority of the information for Datashed is stored, because it's all project driven. And so you'll see that when you comment into the projects page, there's now a sub menu down here. And if you were logged in, and you could actually create a new project from here. And you'll see that the sub menu is called projects, which is actually the page that it opens to, which contains this search engine over here. And then there's advanced search, project list, and export report. So on this page, it begins to list all the projects alphabetically. I believe it's about 20 projects per page. And if you go to the very last page, there are about 21 pages. So roughly, around 400 some projects that are currently in Datashed. Now, it's a mixture of different types of projects. So there are actually 5 different types of projects that someone can have on Datashed. It's not just passive treatment. You can have active treatment system projects, passive treatment projects, which is what most people would kind of expect. There is a place to put land reclamation projects. There's not a lot of land reclamation projects entered onto Datashed, but you can do that. There is a place to put what we called site assessment and restoration plans. This is the idea that so if you maybe you don't actually have a treatment system yet, or maybe you're in sort of a planning phase where you're developing a restoration plan, and you could create a project to store your water monitoring data associated with that. So you could put all your discharges in there, and that sort of thing. And then there is a stream monitoring program. So originally, many years ago, when we created Datashed, we did not have a separate stream type project. You would just enter in your sample points that were related to the system that were streamed. You would just include them all in there. And there are projects that are still like that. But one of the things that I'm hoping to do is that we separate those a little bit more so that we have specific stream projects and then if you're passive or active treatment systems, and you can sort of see all that information. So let's talk a little bit here about the search engine. So you can search by project name, which is probably if you already know the project, it's probably the easiest way to find it. So for instance, maybe you're interested in the Jennings passive treatment system. You just type in Jennings. However, maybe you're not exactly sure. For instance, maybe you're like, it was Bear Run something, and or maybe was it Bear Rock Run or Bear Creek or whatever. So that gives you a little bit more a larger variety of projects. You can just search by project type. So for instance, if you just wanted to see, let's say, land reclamation projects, you could do that, or active treatment projects. You could do that. You can search by watershed, but again, you have to be careful with the watershed, because it all depends on who created the project and what watershed and what level they assigned it to. But you could certainly, let's say, search for projects related to the Slippery Rock Creek watershed. Or you could search by county. You might say, hey, what projects are in Greene County? You can search by state, but currently everything is Pennsylvania, so it's built into there, but it's not necessary. The keyword isn't overly helpful, I have found. It doesn't search by keyword. I think maybe that search engine, we might need to go in there and tweak that a little bit. I found that it's not particularly helpful for keywords. And which is funny because actually in the old version of Dash, it was the opposite. The project name wasn't super helpful, and I always used the keyword to search for projects. But you can use the keyword, I think, to search by a name. So I just typically use the project name, and you can use these in combination. So for instance, if you were interested in active treatment systems in Indiana County, you could have a variety, or you could even say, okay, I want to know what's in the Blacklick watershed in Indiana County. And so then it would it would narrow those down. There is another way of kind of just generally looking at projects. I'm going to skip over advanced search for a second and just show this project list, just because it's not necessarily the best way to find projects, but it is kind of a little interesting little thing. It basically shows all the projects in alphabetical order, and it shows the project photo. And so it's kind of, I don't know, I guess I'm weird, but I kind of like just sometimes looking down through the list and looking for interesting pictures that catch my eye. It's a way sometimes for me to actually notice new projects that have been entered in that I didn't realize, find projects. Sometimes it's a way to look through, again, if it's a project you don't quite remember the name, but you kind of have a thing, you kind of know what it is, or maybe it's like, it was BC something, or, I think it started with, I think it started with a C, and you come down and go, oh yeah, it was Cessna Run, that's what it was. So it's just one way of kind of finding projects. The advanced search, as you would think, has more searching parameters on there. There is a little bit of a bug where if you start putting too many things in, it almost breaks the search engine, and it doesn't seem to find things very well. But what I really like for this search engine, what I think has the most value for the advanced search, is the treatment technologies. And so, for instance, if you wanted to find systems that have use anoxic limestone drains, you can search for that, and for any project where the person identified that had an anoxic limestone drain as a technology, it will pull those together. Now, there are some issues to keep in mind with that. Number one, someone would have to have entered in that it had an anoxic limestone drain. The other issue, although it's not so much an issue for anoxic limestone drains, is that a lot of people use different names for the same similar types of technology. For example, let's say like what we refer to as auto flushing. So that you have these let's just say vertical flow ponds in general. So you can have vertical flow ponds. You can have sort of mixed, you can have layered vertical flow ponds, mixed media vertical flow ponds. Some people, a lot of the old versions were referred to as SAPs. Some people will actually call them RAPs. You can get into things like, okay, it's an auto flushing siphon-based limestone only vertical flow pond, or an auto flushing solar based limestone only vertical flow pond. And some people also refer to those as drainable limestone beds, or just call them limestone beds. So there's it does get a little tricky if you're searching by technology, that that people have different names for those similar types of technology. So you might need to search by multiple technologies names to find what you're looking for. I have wondered if we might be able to refine this search engine portion and maybe cross-reference things, but that we have not really explored that yet.